All right, so welcome back to number 18. I'm really excited that we've gotten 18 of these in the can. That's a film terminology, right? Anyway, this one, demand management, is really about how you deal with too many projects and not enough resources, which is probably one of the most common problems I think every institution, most institutions, a lot of institutions run into, right? There's just too much work and not enough resources to get it done. And I bring it up because I think it's just, again, just my personal opinion. I think that the business analyst is really that the role of the business analyst is really perfect for this. I think that once you have kind of mastered all of the steps and you're matriculating up through your organization, that this is kind of the place that you want to be ultimately. The term that's used a lot is trusted advisor. And when you hear that term, when I hear that term, I think of this concept, demand management, which really is part of portfolio management, which we'll show you right now. Again, in case you're new out here, my name is Richard Frederick. This presentation is sponsored by the IIBA of Tampa Bay. And if you're new, please join our group. It doesn't cost anything. It's great. You can find us on Meetup, Facebook. You can find us on LinkedIn. And we try to put these together, especially during these times where we're not able to see each other face to face. So please take a moment and reach out to us, and we would love to have you join our group. This particular set of presentations was started around the concept of requirements development for business data analytics, the language of data. All of these logos represent organizations that are all grappling with just the challenge of trying to elicit requirements for everything, whether it be product, process, or data, which is really all there is. There's just those three. There's, product, process, and data. That's pretty much, and all of us are in probably dealing with one of those three or all of those three. Traditionally, it's been product and process. Historically, data is relatively new as far as the focus of requirements, but it's been around, for the whole time. I teach a class on requirements and project management specific to business data analytics. They're just traditional, regular classes like you would take for any requirements course: elicit, analyze, document, validate. I just give more attention to data, especially under analyze. If you look under the analyze section, you'll see there's a lot more information about data. We've covered a lot of that, or some of that, in some of these sessions that we've done. I also do a project management course about data. Again, traditional project management course, but focuses on data. It's color-coded to represent roles, which I'll touch on here in a moment. 2-second overview about me. I owned a software company in the 1990s that focused on workflow automation. And we built software robots. And again, the concept of the future is that you'll have an intelligent assistant, which is autonomous, that's operating independently of you, that is providing you with direction, with response, kind of like Star Trek from the 1960s. So those days are coming. This particular section on a demand management, so each of these sessions is really about just, seek to understand and then train the trainer. We want you, if possible, to take this information that we're providing, which is open source and standards based, and to pass it on to as many people who you feel like might benefit from it. This particular one around demand management is a subsection of portfolio management called Select, which we'll talk about here in a moment. And under Select specifically is demand management, which is really one of the great challenges. And I kind of sum it up this way: if you're a financial executive and you have $1 to spend, where do you spend that money? Or if you're in charge of a PMO, and you have a budget and you have, $1, where do you spend it? So there are tools out there, portfolio management tools. And what I'm going to show you is just kind of an example from a portfolio management tool. They're basically the same. I mean, they might look a little bit different, but the conceptual idea behind them is the same. So you go through kind of the identify your business drivers, which is the non-financial and financial key performance indicators that we identified in previous sessions. And using those drivers as kind of a weighted scoring, it enables you to prioritize the list of projects in your backlog, and then optimize those based on something known as the efficient frontier. And then hopefully you'll see results that enable you to, better utilize your resources. All of these concepts come from the philosophy that every institution operates with limited resources. So what do I mean by resources? Well, there's 4 generic resources that we're talking about. There's money, materials, and machinery found on your balance sheet, and then there's human resources found on your income statement. Sometimes you'll hear people say, people are our greatest asset, and I have to joke with them that there's no such thing as a people asset on a balance sheet. So technically, people are discretionary expenses that have to be minimized, because most of those people are cost centers. I don't like to say that to them to their face, but that's really part of the role of a business analyst, is we're looking to maximize resource utilization, which means to make everybody operate more efficiently, which is why we're automating to then implement intelligent assistance. So all the pieces are hooked together. And if you've been with me through all of these sessions, hopefully I've made the case that the game has changed. Robots aren't going to take your job, but they are definitely going to change your job. So, and this is why right here, we're coming into this. So portfolio management, just, I always like to use the fingers, right? Elicit, analyze, document, validate, or initiate, plan, execute, control, and close. Well, in this one, it's create, select, plan, manage, and close. Okay. Most portfolio management tools out there, regardless of who the vendor is, walk you through at least these 4 for sure: create, select, plan, and manage. This particular section, we're going to be talking about select. And select is, assuming that we've already created our drivers. And Mike was asking about the business case. So hopefully, Mike, you can see on the slide, it says business case, which is perfect timing. Thank you so much. In this scenario, the business case hasn't been decomposed yet into functional requirements. In this scenario, we're still deciding, at least in the second stage, which is select, which business cases to choose. So this week, the timing of this presentation is actually really interesting, because this week I taught a class on business process analysis, which the purpose of that class is to lead you through the journey to ultimately developing the business case, which then gets entered into the portfolio system and then goes through the selection process. Now, not everybody operates this way. So not everybody takes every business case and then decides. A lot of times they've decided before the business case even gets created. But assume for a moment that your institution does capture these business cases in a backlog or a repository of potential projects to pursue. Then they have to go through this process known as selection. So you can see in red, it says, select portfolio at the top, and then it says demand management. And at the bottom, it says the central data repository trains intelligent assistants. So all of the work that's being done here in this process is designed to ultimately train the intelligent assistant, so that as you move through this process, you get feedback from your assistant about, hey, here's the highest and best use of your resources. So that's what we're going to be touching on today. So let's just talk about this. Select, the first stage of select, or what's necessary to begin the selection process, is first to have business drivers identified. And these drivers change for every institution that operates. And they're basically your key capabilities. They help you define and communicate the business strategy. They drive executive consensus. They help you prioritize objectively. They're there to help you identify the optimum portfolio. when you consider both the money and the strategy that you're pursuing. They also help you manage trade-offs, and then ultimately they're there to help you maximize resource utilization, money, materials, machinery, and human manpower. Okay, so obviously, and then the results: improve customer satisfaction, improve product quality, increase service quality, enhance customer level training, outsource customer service, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So a little bit more, drivers come from all over the place, and they can be associated with all kinds of things: regulatory information, competitive information, customer information, revenue growth, operational efficiency, global risk models, governance, technology frameworks. I mean, they're all over the place, and every institution is going to select drivers differently. So there's no one set of drivers. They're just different for every institution. So every institution operates differently. So that's why I always tell people there's no right or wrong way to do anything. There's just different ways. I mentioned before about the color coding on the project. Let me just touch on those if you are new to this. The purple in the project, if you go back and you were to print this out in color, the PDF file, under the project management, the purple, it represents the role of the business analyst, product owner. The yellow represents the role of the project manager, scrum master. There's two greens. One is associated with an IT system architect. That would be the first one. The second one would be associated with your developer, data scientist, subject matter expert. The blue is your your QA tester, and then the orange represents intelligent assistance, which is really your deployment model. And if you go back and you look at the the project management outline, it says that purple is understand the business, yellow is understand the data, the first green is prep the data, the second green is model the data, the third one is to validate the data, and then the last one is to deploy. So all of these roles, the team of the future, are involved in the process of helping the institution identify highest and best use of resources. And that's really what we're talking about. So I'm going to just walk you through really quickly what a standard portfolio management tool would do. Okay, and that's pretty much what it is. So the first thing is we're going to group them. So the first one is prioritization. So every institution, if you were using a portfolio management tool, it would want you to not only identify those drivers, but prioritize those drivers. And then what would happen is you would begin to compare, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to follow along those numbers. So first thing would be to prioritize the business drivers. The second thing would be to start to assess strategic impact. So you'd be assessing the impact of each project request against the prioritized business drivers. So what they're saying is that a business case in the portfolio system is a request for funds, which is normally what I always call it. It's you're asking for money, you put it in the system, and then the system is, whether the money is allocated or not is dependent upon a whole series of factors, which we'll talk about. Number 3 is prioritize. Derive a priority score to evaluate each project request against a number of different factors. For example, strategic value, financial value, and risk. And then number 4 is investment maps. You'd analyze the project portfolio before attempting to make some kind of a funding decision. And these investment maps are just a visual that allows you to sort of see, based on priority and cost, where things fit. And again, a lot of this is subjective, but there's some math involved as well that we'll bring up here in a moment. So now you've got this data in your system. And again, we talked about parametric estimating. And that was the thing when I went through and I explained estimating, and I kept saying, we want to reuse estimates over and over again because we want a repository of data on which to analyze. So we use our historical data to help us predict future outcomes. This is very true in the portfolio management system. I mean, the intelligent assistant only works based off of historical data. So having all of that data, all that parametric estimating, and then leveraging Monte Carlo analysis, all of that's built into these tools. Okay. So once you have the map set up and you want to go in and start to optimize your portfolio, then the tools allow you to do what's known as a what-if analysis. That's Monte Carlo, what-if analysis. So you get to use sophisticated optimization algorithms, such as Monte Carlo, to maximize the portfolio's strategic value under varying budget constraints. So you say, hey, if we have this much money, what's the best choices? Or if we have this much money, what's the best choices? Or if we increase the risk or decrease the risk, or which one ties us back to the best decision? And that is where we begin to utilize something known as the efficient frontier. Now, the efficient frontier is a finance concept. It's not it's not necessarily a project management concept. You can look it up. It's pretty standard. It goes back to the 50s. Very famous economist came up with it from the University of Chicago. And it's been around for a long time. And it's a risk return curve. And what it does is you can start to look at, based on all these other factors, these drivers and your finances and risk, and start to map out where your selected items fall on this particular curve called the efficient frontier. Once you have that, then you can start to look at, okay, now let's make some predictions, calculate and communicate the selected portfolio's alignment with the organization's strategic priorities. So the idea here is that to me, this is where I see a business analyst in the future. So people ask me all the time when I'm teaching class, hey, where do you see this going? Like, if I'm a business analyst and this is my career, what would it look like when I get to the top of my career? This is it right here. This is the kind of the pinnacle of what a business analyst does, is they do portfolio optimization based on all of the work that they've done in their career to get to this point. Okay, which then once you've identified, and then you kick off your projects and you start to actually do the work, then what happens is you start to accumulate the results, and hopefully you made good decisions. So 8 is just kind of a list of projects as they're occurring and whether they're on or off target. 9 again is across this efficient frontier, and you'll see these sub numbers 1, 2, and 3. If you look at the number 10 box, it says number 1 was your original selection, which had a 51% strategic value and a total earnings before interest and taxes of $389 million. The second one was your optimal selection, which had an 82% strategic value with an earnings before interest and taxes of $564 million. And then your final selection includes mandated projects. So what that means is that some projects are going to be required for regulatory requirements, even though they don't necessarily generate a return. So that's where that comes in and says, oh, okay, so here's what you would like to do, optimal, but here's what you're going to have to do because of regulatory needs. And that would be your final selection. And so you ended up at, let's say, 75% with an earnings before interest and taxes of $526 million. But at the top is really kind of the whole idea behind what we're doing, which is gaining control. Portfolio optimization led to gains of $137 million in earnings before interest and taxes and a 24% strategic value for the same budget. Okay, so why is this important? Well, this information right now is procedural, and it takes time to move through the process. The reason it's going to change is because as we tend to accumulate more data in our repository, the intelligent assistant will be able to run these numbers in real time. And as you're loading business cases directly into your repository, it's going to almost be able to tell you in real time that, hey, this is a good deal or this is not a good deal. That's where we're going. That's where this is all heading. Okay. So that was it. That was a short one. So again, train the trainer. The idea is to take this information and to provide it to whoever you wish. Again, the 4 steps of demand management: identify your drivers, portfolio prioritization, portfolio optimization, and then being able to judge the results. But this is kind of the end all of where we started at the very beginning, when I started out with dashboards and robots, this is it. This is the, and whether you realize it or not, if you were to go back to that very first presentation, on the very first slide, I had a giant picture of Cortana, and right underneath it, I had the portfolio selection slide, which I actually took from this presentation. And because that, to me, is kind of the end all be all of where we're going to be. All right. If you are new, and you're welcome again. If you would like a copy of this presentation, please feel free to send me an email to rfrederick.pmp@gmail.com, and I'll send this right back to you as a PDF. We'll be posting this video on our Meetup and on our LinkedIn websites. If you would like, I would love to become a member of your network. I'd really be humbled by that. And so just send me an invite to linkedin.com. And if you think your company might be interested in either requirements or project management for business data analytics, please feel free to reach out to me. So that's it for today. Are there any questions at all about what we just went through? I know it was fast. All right. Okay. Well, I'll take that as a no. All right, good. Then we are done for the day. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend. And we'll talk to you again next week. We're going to be covering Machine Learning EZ. And then our last presentation will be after the holiday to discuss data storytelling. So, and like I said, if you have any suggestions, I got yours, Mike, about moving from the business case to the functional requirements. That's a great one. We'll definitely put that in the hopper for things to talk about. So we're done. Have a great day.